We already know that the surface EMG measurements on a C5 spinal cord lesion quadriplegic demonstrates the somatopsychic response below the level of the lesion. All right? And what I'm going to do now is read excerpts from this paper. An electrophysiological phenomenon running up and down the spine elicited by light pressure contact at very precise points, and thereafter taking the external appearance of an undulatory motion of the spine is analyzed from its standing wave properties. This standing spinal wave can be elicited in both normal subjects and quadriplegic subjects, which demonstrates that the neuronal circuitry is embedded in the spine. Central pattern generator, or CPG, is a concept still in search of final definition. However, it is admitted that it is an interconnection of neurons that produces a movement of the limbs and or the trunk that has the following attributes. The movement is rhythmic. It does not require a pattern sensory input. The neuronal circuitry is embedded in the spine without higher cerebral function or involvement. It requires some learning or entrainment and might undergo resettling. And in the case of a CPG controlling the movement of the spine, the latter exhibits some wave properties. And this rocking motion of the spine is elicited by light pressure contact on the spine at some precise cervical and sacral points. At the cervical level, it is conjectured that the attachment of the spinal dura to the C1 through C6 vertebrae creates a sensory motor loop oscillation, which is easily visualized as a twitching of the trapezius and SCMs. After some entrainment, the skin area overlying the dural vertebral attachments is sensitized to the point where a slight pressure contact is enough to elicit the oscillation. The oscillation rapidly becomes self-sustained without the need for further external pressure sensory input from the practitioner. Conclusion. This paper has developed evidence of a human CPG that produces an undulatory motion of the spine. It is conjectured that CPG has complicated circuitry embedded in and extended all along the spine. The latter has somewhat been confirmed by the robustness of the spinal oscillation, which can be elicited under serious neurological deficit, as demonstrated by the quadriplegic research subject case. And he goes on to say, whether the wave analysis can be used as a tool to assess spinal cord damage and or recovery is an issue that is currently being investigated. Now, walking is like CPG. This is something that we do without thinking. But golf, if you were a new golfer, that would be a more novel event. And what this study is talking about is that in conjunction with the previous one that I showed you on the JVSR cover, that since we know that there's a CPG, it is embedded in the neuronal circuitry up and down the spine, and we know that the adjustment, and this is, I do not think that this is exclusive to network, but the adjustment lowers the threshold for learning and memory and increases organization of the brain, then novel things that we study or practice become easier. And that's literally turning on the power. All right, so the third, one more slide? Two more? Okay, right. The third principle of the network spinal analysis technique is to detect and enhance the availability of spinal gateway contacts for self-assessment and self-organization. Now, this is not a technique colloquium, so I'm not going to go into detail about that. What I prepared was on the research aspect and why it's done. But all I'm going to say about this is that the gateway is a specific area where force can be introduced for initiation of significant change in the system, and this change can be correction or advancement. The fourth is to detect the presence of indications of adverse mechanical cord tension and associated altered states of spinal and neural integrity. And does everybody here know how this upper cervical adjustment affects a patient with a low back complaint? Let's see the show of hands. Okay, that's pretty much everybody. Well, just in case you were wondering or you forgot about it, I'm going to go over it again. Because it's in the paper, man. All right, now adverse mechanical cord tension. This term was first used by the neurosurgeon Al Bree. And this was his definition. Tension set up in the brain or spinal cord and nerve roots through the presence of a pathological structure or lesion located within or outside the tissue, which is the prominent or a prominent cause of neurologic signs and symptoms. Now, as defined by Don Epstein, It is a condition of the spinal cord and its soft tissue produced by various factors which can traction, elongate, or compress the spinal cord, interfering with its function, tension, oscillation, and compromising its physiology, thus predisposing the central nervous system and peripheral nerves to a state of facilitation, and the facilitation leading to such tension. Now, the neurologist Alf Gray used cadavers here to illustrate cord tension. His intervention was radical surgery using a synthetic material to keep the cervical spine in extension, thereby reducing this cord tension. I don't know of any surgery that's not radical. But this, what you're looking at on the left, all these images are lumbar spine. On the left here is the lumbar spine in extension. There's two little arrows up here, and if I could reach it, you could see it, but there are two little arrows almost in the center to the right of that image. And that's the distance between the lamina and the nerve root in extension. In flexion, they touch. And this is the image of that. Next slide, please, that you're looking at there. Now, this is cervical spine without the capita. You're looking down in, is it the foramen, through the foramen magnum if it was still there. It's not. And this is the lumbar spine straight on, okay? Picture A is in extension, and B is in flexion. It's a little hard to tell from these images any cord tension in this image, but if you look at the picture on the computer, you can tell. But what I really want to show you on this one is that A is the lumbar spine relaxed with the cervical spine in extension, and B is the lumbar spine with the cervical spine in flexion. And this is how we get those great results, because of that neural tone when we release it. We can affect the low back through that. Okay, next slide. CBP also uses this research to get their great results. That's it is good to have a perfect curve in your neck. I mean, the spinal cord sits in its saddle correctly. All right, it decreases the tethering of the cord, and the blood vessels that supply the cord are healthier.